Alex, dear son of mine, please see if you can muster up the energy to walk into town and pick up some groceries.
Not even home 5 minutes and she's already barking orders at me.
Get over yourself, Alex. Could you be any more of an entitled little brat?
Today I come to you in full cosplay as Alex Eagleston, the main character of Y2K, a postmodern RPG. It's a surreal RPG where a mystery girl vanishes and you assemble a squad of internet weirdos to investigate while the world gradually starts to make less and less sense. Y2K has been my main hyperfixation for almost a year now. I've spent countless hours playing it, listening to the soundtrack, and yapping about it to everyone that will listen. Basically, I yeeked out too hard and now I'm cooked. I mean, look at me. Just look. I bought the vinyl soundtrack and everything. Lemonade. Now, normally, a dense, crunchy RPG with visual novel elements would be my kryptonite. For years, I have phrased that as the exact opposite of my taste. But completely genuinely, Y2K was the game that changed me. I loved it so much that it was my gateway into enjoying an entire subgenre of video games that I didn't before. And that's a perfect demonstration of the mysterious allure this game has. Countless YouTubers have tried and failed to put into words why it's so fascinating, so here I am to give it a fair swing of my own. At a glance, Y2K appears to be a love letter to old school RPGs, and it has all the essentials to convince the nostalgic RPG fan to buy in. It's got linear exploration and puzzle dungeons with a unique visual style, great music, and it's fully voice acted. Say no more, where do I sign, right? But hold on, because it's important for you to know that Y2K is a very subversive game, and you should go into it expecting for the narrative to challenge you. Y2K deliberately doesn't give you all the information you need to understand it right away. It wants you to dig a little deeper and solve the mystery for yourself. So I'm not going to spill the beans on everything Y2K has to offer because the story deciphering metagame is such a big aspect of why I loved it so much, and I wouldn't want to rob any of you of that experience. I think a good compromise is for me to break down Alex's character in this video. It demonstrates the strength of the game's writing while also giving you a starting point to understanding a lot of the other moving parts in the story for your playthrough. Alright, I know this might come as a shock to all of you, but I'm not actually Alex YIIK, I'm actually Clue from Planet Clue, and we all know the best part of Black Friday is scoring unbelievable deals, right? Well, Raycon decided to join the party with up to 30% off site-wide for you, my lovely audience who I love. Raycon's everyday earbuds are packed with premium features, like active noise canceling and a 32-hour battery life, at a price point that's way more accessible than other big-name brands. I've been suffering from a chronic Oni Plays addiction for the last 8 years, and completely genuinely, I'm always listening to their compilations while I'm cooking, cleaning, or working. The active noise canceling is a necessity for me. If I'm about to use the vacuum or blender, every time I'm about to make a smoothie, I'm like, where are the Raycons? Where are they? They're also sweat resistant, which is very convenient for me when I'm on the treadmill, and the multi-point connectivity is super convenient for when I'm switching between my phone and laptop, and the charging case is gorgeous, and you get to pick your favorite design for the silicone cover. This is the one that I picked. I love the aesthetic of it. It's got wireless charging and quick charge, so you can get 90 minutes of playtime just from 10 minutes of charging. So it's time to save big this Black Friday. Go to buyraycon.com/planetclue to get up to 30% off site-wide. When you buy Raycons, you're helping to support the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. So Alex is the worst RPG protagonist, and I mean worst in the sense that he's deeply flawed and unvirtuous, while all of that being reinforced by amazing writing and acting. People don't like the qualities of this character, and you're not supposed to.
You want me to just walk away from my job for 3 to 4 hours?
It's important. Look, no one here really needs you to do your job. It'll be fine.
I need the money, Alex.
Hey, I'll pay you. What do you make an hour, like minimum wage? I'll give you the $30.
The dialogue is meticulously crafted for Alex to be the most believably hateable protagonist because the whole joke, the ultimate irony, is that you're playing as a main character with main character syndrome. From a young age, Alex sought out personal validation through escapism, through video games and media, and he's a warning sign for what can happen if you start to believe the straightforward narrative that fiction portrays. He's so self-absorbed that he tries to convince everyone around him that he's the hero and that they should join his noble quest to save some girl he's never met in a desperate attempt to feel important. He's a brilliant caricature of people that see themselves as some misunderstood center of the universe, and everything in Y2K revolves around this core idea. Alex monologues a lot. He drowns us in information, and he waxes poetic about every passing thought or feeling, no matter how arbitrary. And this is in stark contrast to all the people that surround him. We only ever get to see a surface level level exploration of any of his friends. So why is Alex's perspective so extraneously detailed while his friends are so shallow? Going along with what I said earlier about main character syndrome, Alex truly believes the universe centers around him. So he manufactured a universe where it does, and that's the one we're seeing. The entirety of Y2K takes place inside of Alex's head. He's dictating his own story to us, and he's a very unreliable narrator. The world that we're witnessing in the game is through Alex's distorted lens. And the game is not subtle about this either. I mean, look at the cover of the vinyl. All the characters and the set pieces that surround them are all exploding from the depths of Alex's psyche. Alex is an insecure narcissist, so he's lying to us in the same way that he's lying to himself. And that can take form in many different ways. For instance, Alex's house is comically large compared to every other house in his hometown of Frankton. Of course he has the biggest house. He's the main character that's gonna save the world one day. Everything is laid out like a linear RPG because he's played so many video games that it's the only thing that makes sense to him. And the reason his friends are so shallow and seem like archetypes of themselves is because Alex just sees them as party members that might be useful in his grand quest later on. He's delivering to us a very unnuanced perspective of these people because he never cared about any of them in the first place. Once you understand that everything we're seeing in the game is what makes it through Alex's filter, it makes it glaringly obvious when he misremembers something or mixes up details, like he's mashing several stories together in his head. At the beginning of the game, Alex visits an abandoned hotel where he meets this girl named Sammy, fights a giant robot, gets into an elevator, and watches helplessly as these spiritual entities from another reality come to steal her away. Because this happens immediately in the story, we have no reason to doubt him. We don't know the rules of this world, and we inherently trust that he does. But Alex talks so much that if you scrutinize what he's saying, sometimes he slips up, and those inconsistencies help us piece together when he's lying. And it turns out, Alex never even met Sammy. That whole scene in the elevator, none of that happened. What actually happened is, he was sitting in front of the computer on a conspiracy theory forum, looking at a post about a missing girl named Sammy, and he made up a dumb little story in his head about how he was there to witness the aliens that made her go missing. For everything he shares with us and chooses to exaggerate, what he chooses not to share can glean just as much. For instance, Alex meets a guy named Rory. They sent some messages back and forth on said conspiracy theory forum. Oh, and it turns out he's just a town over. How convenient. So Alex gets on a bus to go meet with him IRL. But Alex literally just lied to us about meeting Sammy. We know he didn't do that. We know it wasn't aliens that took her away because that's insane. So what if Alex is embellishing the story again about how he met his internet friend Rory IRL? Or does Rory even exist? Or did he just make him up entirely? But once you start thinking like that, ironically, Alex is getting what he wants. You're starting to relate to him. His world doesn't make sense. He doesn't know what to believe. He wants you to trust him and believe that the things that he says will make sense eventually. Of course, Alex is an unlikable protagonist. His deplorable behavior gives you reason to doubt him. If you start thinking like he does, with no doubt in your mind, then you're just as lost in the whole conspiracy as he is. The whole point of the game is to teach us to reject Alex's delusional way of thinking.
One day, Alex, when you finally get a job, you'll understand how everything can't be conspiracies and missing mysterious girls all the time.
A lot of people had trouble getting invested in Alex as a character because he's so difficult. It feels really weird to control a character that doesn't give you the option to not be terrible. But when Alex gives us a glimpse into his past, we start to form a more rounded perception of him. We come to learn that he's not a willful monster. He's the victim of a broken home and poor parenting. His dad walked out on the family when he was a kid to selfishly chase a woman with nice legs. And that gave Alex a twisted perception of women because of the fear that he'll end up ruining their lives like his dad did. His mom wasn't present during his childhood and continues to be distant even now because she's always working. And the result of that was Alex being socially isolated and seeking solace in video games. And that led him to have a twisted perception of reality. It made him feel entitled to save the world and get the girl, and a belief that everything will make sense in the end, just like all of his favorite works of fiction. He wants his wasted efforts and misguided obsessions to mean something, and he feels that they will so long as people can relate to him. And I do. I really do. I can relate to feeling truly alone in the world and taking solace in media. I spent so much of my life being unrelatable in the same way that Alex is. That's the reason I fell into creative stuff. It was my only outlet for my passions because none of the people that surrounded me would give me the time of day. And I'm extremely grateful that I had that, because if I had to bottle up that energy for as long as Alex has, maybe I would have ended up as an unwillful monster myself.
But don't you think that this is all connected? Sammy vanishing, me meeting you, Rory, the entity appearing in my house!
Sometimes a record is just a record and an entity just lives in your house. Don't try and connect everything together like there is some giant cosmic plan.
Giant cosmic plan. Giant cosmic plan.
Y2K came out in 2019, so why am I breaking down a character from a game that came out 5 years ago? It's because for the last 5 years, the creators of the game have been working on a gigantic milestone update called Y2K IV, and they've been teasing this update basically non-stop since development began. It's an absolute overhaul of everything. New battle system, new mine dungeon, better cutscenes, better everything, as well as adding so much new content, new music, new locations, new story and lore stuff to chew on. The IV update literally doubles the runtime of the game because there's so much new content. The IV update is finished and it's coming out on December 2nd, which is a few days after the release of this video. It's a free update that'll be delivered to anyone that already owns a copy of Y2K. I've been working on this video for like 9 months now. It really shouldn't have taken me that long, but this script was a really tough nut to crack. And during that time, I showed footage of Y2K in the sponsors segment that was in my plug and play video, and Andrew Allenson, co-creator of the game, saw that and dropped into my Discord DMs like, hey. And I was like, hi, Andrew, big fan. What can I do for you? And he was like, you interested in playing IV before it launches? And I said, absolutely. I did have to sign an NDA for those few months just as leak protection, but there was absolutely no money moved around. I'm not sponsored by them. I just got to beta test the new update for a few months before it launched. I was very clear with him from the beginning that I wouldn't let my opinions be influenced by the early access, and he said he anticipated nothing less. And my conclusion is just that it's pretty fantastic. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to reveal any story spoilers or anything. The battle system is great. There's so much depth to it. I can switch up my strategy to take down a really tough boss fight, as opposed to the feeling of helplessness I had regarding the old version of the game. The presentation is a marked improvement across the board. The new music is spectacular. It adds this radical bass-heavy motif. The cutscenes have so much flavor, and it makes everything from the monologues to the action feel so substantial. It's got bite, it's got punch, I love it. The new mine dungeon has some Sega Saturn 3D platformer vibes. It's a night and day difference to what it was like before. Exploring the mine dungeon actually feels satisfying and rewarding. The biggest downside I have about Y2K IV is that I feel the introduction isn't as strong. One of the attributes that really grabbed me about the original Y2K is that the bait and switch also functioned as a hook. The original version of the game had all these classic RPG set pieces right away, and the way the game played off of them made me so curious to see what it would do next. But in IV, right away you play as the nameless child dropped into the blackened pond. It's a 10-minute segment where the dialogue is so ciphered that players aren't going to know what anyone's talking about. And I worry that front-loading so many story beats that intentionally don't make sense until you're hours and hours into the game is going to have people feel uninvested and potentially quit because you haven't given them a reason to care. I felt that Alex's immediate introduction, this supposed regular guy in a grounded and familiar setting, was enough of a tangible hook to keep most people going, whereas I'm not sure if I feel that same way about IV's opening. When I mentioned this to Andrew, he said that a lot of the best games bury the greatest contents as a reward for commitment, and that the confusion and the surreal vibes should be enough to carry people through. I think that's fair because that's how I felt about it. I was trying to be inclusive to the everyman. But yeah, for all of you watching this video that developed your opinion of Y2K based on the bad faith reviews and video essays that came out 5 years ago, I'm asking you to please reconsider. Andrew and Brian spent a decade of their lives making the game, and the resulting product is so incredibly earnest and polished. Obviously, I'm a little biased in the sense that I already loved the original version of the game, warts and all, but I know a quality product when I see it, and I truly believe that they made good on the original promise of the game. I think it'll exceed everyone's expectations. So I hope you guys like the game. If you want more Y2K content, I can't recommend Hellcry's Y2K analysis videos enough. They break down the story in such an easy to understand way, and they really helped me in my studies of it. The finale of the series just came out, and I may or may not star as a voice role, so please do check him out. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I will see you next month. Welcome back to Love Letters. It's time to open the stuff from the P.O. Box. Thank you to Nullkid for this drawing of KK. Thank you to Kirsten for this artwork, a lovely letter, a handmade KK frog plush, as well as a yes-no button plush from Bluey, and a Burger King Furby toy. Thank you to Stardust Skunk for sending a comically huge collection of UB Funkies, which I have a ton of nostalgia for, and a Hasbro game key with many games. Thank you to everyone on Patreon for being a patron. The P.O. Box address is in the channel's About page. Thanks again to everyone that sent some cool stuff my way, and I'll see you next time.